The Mario world is no stranger to creepy levels. From haunted houses to killer pianos, we've encountered it all. However, I do have to say that all the haunted scenarios still have that Mario charm. It's scary in the scope of the world, but to us, it isn't too frightening. We come to expect the range of things we'll encounter in these haunted locations, and for the most part, we aren't surprised. Now, that isn't a bad thing at all. Personally, I love the haunted twist of the Mario universe, but there is one Mario story that is absolutely terrifying, and terrifying in the best way. Now, for those of us in the United States, we probably are familiar with what Nintendo Power is. If you didn't experience it when you were younger, you probably have heard of the magazine over the years. However, in other parts of the world, there were different variants of each magazine that were unique to each area. One in particular, called Club Nintendo, was published in Germany, and the comics within were quite interesting. However, out of all the comics, the strangest by far was a two-parter that is translated as The Night of Horror. Both parts were published over a year apart, and is by far one of the most absurd Mario stories I have ever read. Before continuing, I want to give a big shout out to Milo's Cat for translating this, Open Train for providing the scans, and everyone else who brought this to life in English. It's incredible to know that things like this occurred during my childhood, and I never knew. So why is this comic absolutely amazing? Let's take a closer look. The comic starts out with our iconic plumber and princess having an enjoyable night in their Brooklyn apartment. Nothing like some romance and burgers. I have no idea why they have a bear rug, but apparently they do. Anyways, lightning strikes and the whole apartment building is thrown into darkness. Because Peach is absolutely terrified of the dark, Mario decides to venture down into the basement to restore power. According to what he says, he was apparently an electrician before he was retrained as a plumber. Which makes my How Old Is Mario video even more extreme than how I originally spun it. Anyways, when Mario makes his way to the basement, he ends up running into his pals Link and Kirby, who also apparently live in this same apartment complex. It's like a big old Nintendo family up in here. Their meetup is quickly interrupted when they hear strange voices coming from Wario's room though. Quick side note here. Personally, I find this funny because Link is terrified and doesn't want to go in. The one who would later be known to hold the Triforce of Courage is making up an excuse so that Mario has to go in first. Just thought that was worth mentioning. The group then proceeds to peek into Wario's room, and what they see is truly remarkable. Wario is striking a deal with the devil, a Faustian bargain. However, what is even more absurd is the fact that the room is full of monsters and horror movie stars. There's Jason, Chucky, Leatherface, and plenty more. In the center of the room, Wario is sitting with Abigor, who was one of the Dukes of Hell. As a bit of a history lesson, according to Wikipedia, this name is derived from Johann Weyer's book, De Prestigis Daemonum, which is probably not pronounced that way at all. This came to be in 1577, and it essentially lists out a bunch of demons and how you can summon them. Abigor, the character that is sitting next to Wario, is one of those demons. Him and Wario strike a deal in which Wario, who is apparently the caretaker of this apartment skyscraper, gives Abigor the keys to all the apartments, and in exchange, we'll get Peach's never-ending love, as Abigor will manipulate her mind. The monsters in the room take the keys and bum rush the building, leaving our heroes feeling helpless. Out of nowhere though, Kirby finds a chest with Van Helsing written on the top, and they suit up with all the amazing weapons and equipment inside. For some reason, they also chug random red potions inside the chest too. Which just sounds like a horrible idea. That's like the last thing I would do. You find a chest full of crossbows, whips, and a flaming sword, and then you slam some potions that make you go full-blown Mr. Hyde in a crazy frenzy. Something about that makes absolutely no sense. Anyway, soon after transforming, they rescue Donkey Kong and Diddy after defeating Chucky, Frankenstein, Freddy Krueger, Medusa, Jason Voorhees, and many others. They then return to normal, stash their goods in the chest again, and then head to their apartments. However, not all is well, and Peach has become zombified. The first comic ends, and then a year later, they publish the second half. In the second installment, Mario busts into Kirby's apartment to warn Kirby and Link that Toadstool has become a zombie, and that he needs their help. Upon returning to Toadstool, they find a cube that transports them into a different dimension. They don't realize it at first until they're all sucked up into appliances and end up in a graveyard. For those who are familiar with the Hellraiser series, you probably recognize this cube right away. However, for those unfamiliar, this device is called Lamarckin's box. This box essentially acts as a key to a dimensional portal or door. When it is solved, it grants access to another plane of existence. And this is what this is referencing in the comic. Beyond that, the other dimension they fall into is straight out of Army of Darkness. The grave in the bottom right corner has the name Ash on it, which is referring to Ash Williams from Army of Darkness. Mario and the gang claim the book from the grave, which is the Necronomicon, which played a large role in the movie. This book in particular is derived from the world of H.P. Lovecraft though, who is someone I reference heavily for my Night in the Woods videos. It is a book that was alluded to in several of his stories, although the true contents of the book are unknown. After digging through the book, Mario casts a spell that accidentally changes all of them into female counterparts. Before they have a chance to remedy the problem, a gate opens nearby and they enter a tunnel. They encounter Chucky and Michael Myers and attempt to trick them, but ultimately Mario and his gang are the ones that fall for their trap. They stumble upon a goetic symbol in which Abelgor had used to summon an undead army to fight them. They get pummeled by all their foes, and in the middle of the fray, Mario escapes and casts a spell to transform our three heroes into dark heroes, and the results are pretty terrifying. Mario goes full-blown Van Helsing, Kirby draws inspiration from Hellraiser's Pinhead, and Link becomes a monkey-bat hybrid, possibly inspired by the winged monkeys from The Wizard of Oz. Could be a different reference as well. The trio lays siege to all the undead foes and overpower them quite easily. The monsters flee in terror along with Abelgor, and then Mario's skin turns back to normal. He runs into the princess to save her, and with the power of love, she is restored. Cliché, I know, but this outfit totally better make it into Super Mario Odyssey. This one too. In conclusion, Mario then tries to teleport everyone back to their own world, but they comedically end up on the set of Musikkantenstadel, which was a German television show that was airing at the time. He claims that this set is actually worse than hell, and he wants to get out as soon as possible. Now, for a magazine that was relatively aimed at a younger audience, all this seems to be quite ridiculous. Like, I can't even imagine someone pitching this and everyone agreeing on it. I'm certainly happy they did because it ended up being totally awesome. The world was a different place back then, and I still wish things like this happened today. Comics like this can be found all across the world, but unless you truly go looking for them, you may not even know they exist. I finally remember all the Nintendo Power ones, especially the comic about Mario and Wario competing over a Samus doll for Peach's affection. I forgot it existed until a little bit ago, and the memories hit me like a sack of bricks. It's crazy to think about how much time has passed since then. However, this is by far one of the oddest mashups I think I've ever encountered, and I just had to share it. The inclusion of all these references to horror movies is pretty awesome. Now I just have to figure out where it fits in the Mario timeline. Kidding, of course. But now that I've dumped that on all of you, I'd of course love to hear your thoughts. Did you catch any references in the comic that I may have missed? What were your overall thoughts on this comic as a whole? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I highly recommend giving the entire thing a read, as this was more so an abridged version of covering it. You can find a link in the description below. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this spooktacular Mario tale. Perhaps some of these other videos will tickle your fancy. Thanks for watching, guys and gals, and until my next video, cheers.